Pop quiz. See how much you remember or how much you've forgotten. My name is Bill Deweese, and I'm the current Director of Broadcasting. And I say current because I think we have several representatives with that particular job description, or have had that job description at one time or another. But I'm glad that you came here. Make some new friends, and hopefully reacquaint yourself with some old broadcasting buddies. For me, as much as anything else, this has been a time of putting the pieces of the puzzle together to get a better look, a bigger picture of what's happened here at WONU, KOC, and whatever else it has been over the past several years. I had a friend the other day he said, "Bill, I think I've finally figured you out." He said, you're just a grown-up kid, and radio is your toy. And I responded, "You're absolutely right. I never wanted a job where I had to work for a living." And I've got a feeling, as I've heard you share your stories, that you feel and have the same passion, or at least have had the same passion for radio that many of us share today. So once again, I welcome you, and I want to give a very special thanks to Mr. Steve Krampitz, '89 graduate and dedicated WONU person, who is he is the unofficial historian of Olivet Radio, and has put this program together and has done all the research and pulled all the bits of information together and has made this all possible. So we want to thank Steve for all he's done, and he'll be officiating and being our master of ceremonies here this afternoon. So, Steve?
Thanks, Bill. We'll hear more from Bill in just a little bit. He's going to have more to tell us about the WONU of today. Some of you know the WONU of yesterday, the WKOC of yesterday, WONC of yesterday, so they'll kind of put the pieces together for the new view of what some of you have already seen up there. And if you haven't had a chance to go up there and take a look around, we'll have it back open for you again real briefly after the little program here. So in case you didn't have a chance to look around, you can still do that. And of course, we got some more food for you to eat up too, so don't want that to go to waste. One of my favorite fellows that I watched on TV for a while, he had experience in broadcasting on radio before he went to TV. I want you to read you something he wrote about radio. "I seldom talk about my job. We all have occupations. Some insist that theirs are best, and often dissertations arise in sessions round the hearth about each job's reward. But that I'd ever trade with them, I'm never in accord. Doctors, lawyers, merchantmen, you're noble sirs, it's true, but those of us in radio, we wouldn't change with you. For in this game, with all of its faults, there's one thing I declare, that's said to us, we love to hear, I've heard you on the air. It has its heartaches, ups and downs, like all the rest, I guess, but we still argue long and loud. We love it, nonetheless. For when some person strange of face we chance to meet, beware. We've made a friend, if he should say, I've heard you on the air. Most of us are versatile. We've done shows of all descriptions, religious, comedy, dramatic ones. We've introduced transcriptions. We sometimes send out photographs. Listeners ask the color of our hair. But best of all, we like to hear, I've heard you on the air. That phrase so sweet has odd effect of men in our profession, our faces light with broad smiles which replace all depression. With shoulders back and chest thrown out and thoughts now free from care, we bless the souls that say to us, I've heard you on the air. Oh vanity, we know you well. We've tasted of your cup. We don't go around admitting it, but we still like to eat it up when some admiring listener brightens up a day so bare by dropping those 6 words to wit, I've heard you on the air. And although on heaven's streets I've little right to look, I'm sure somewhere St. Peter has my name down in his book. And while I'm waiting, standing there waiting my destiny him to declare, I wonder if he'll say to me, I've heard you on the air. That kind of puts together both the funness of radio along with what the ministry of WONU has been about through all of the years. All the 30 years of what now is known as WONU and the 5 years of WONC back in the 40s. We've been here for God's glory all through the years, and He has certainly blessed us down through the years. And one of the main people that He has blessed this station with is with us for today. He's going to talk to us just a little bit. Dr. Ray Moore is here. He was part of the Olivet Nazarene College, as it was known then, back in class of 1941, I understand, when you were first with Olivet. And you'll tell us a little about this, how he was called upon for the fun task of starting what was then known as WKOC back in the 60s. And I'll let Ray, Steve, talk a little bit now.
No, that's right, Ray.
I noticed as he was reading, he didn't pronounce THE as the any place where it should have been the. You know, you say the dog, the man, but the apple, the egg, the orange. And my students have heard that many, many times when they were learning how to read script. Well, when I came to Olivet for the second time, I taught here back in the 40s, and finished in the 40s, and then taught here for a while. And I was gone for 20-some years, and when Dr. Reed asked me to come back, and he and Kurt Brady, who was the head of the Fine Arts Department at the time, when I finally agreed to come, and then they said, one thing we want you to do is to start a broadcast station on campus. Well, I had started one at Kansas City at the seminary, so they knew I knew something about it. Well, okay, it's a kind of a pretty big job. So my first assignment was to start in on that application, and I noticed that on your mission statement out there, you talk about the public good as part of your mission, and the FCC is what controls, and believe me, they do. So when I started even on that small station back there, and I put that application together, everything in triplicate except the antenna, which is in quadruplicate because a copy has to go to the FAA, Federal Aviation Authority. And so when I got that all put together, now for us, it doesn't matter whether you're going to make 50,000 watts or 10 watts. They'd have to know a lot of stuff about you, the charter of the college, the financial statement, the board of trustees, everything under the sun is in that. And when I took that thing to the post office, it weighed 2 pounds. Now, if you can imagine what 2 pounds of paper is like, that's what we put together to get that station going. And it was, I think of a few things that were funny, a few things that, well, I heard you on the air type of things that really make your heart warm. I remember the first time we were going to broadcast a football game. We didn't have our own field yet. Now, when I see Bonnie Green and Ken Ball, they lived through a lot of these things with us. I saw Tim Mercer was here earlier. Is Tim here? He was upstairs. He was with one of our engineers. Anyway, we were going to do this football game from, and since we didn't have our own field, we had borrowed the Catholics. Was it Bishop McNamara? We borrowed their football field. We were going to have a night game, Saturday night. I ordered the line in for the remote. We get over there well ahead of time, ready to hook up the remote. No line, nothing marked WKOC as we were known in those days. I got on the phone with the telephone company. I got, of course, Saturday night. Who knows anything? I finally got a hold of somebody. I said, we're supposed to do a ball game out here, and we can't find any kind of a line. Well, we put one in. Well, it's not marked. We can't find any kind of a line. We tried every line that was there, and marked for other things. No go. It happened that on the following Monday, that the Bell Telephone Company had a luncheon for broadcasters, to which I had been invited. And evidently this gentleman who was there as the head of the local Bell telephone system knew about the problem. And he saw my name and my call sign on my little tag. He said, I need to talk to you. So while we stepped aside, he said, they tell me you had a problem Saturday night. Yes, we did. We couldn't find a line anyplace. He said, I took that man out this morning that was supposed to install that line. I said, show me exactly where you put that line. He took me to the gym. Pretty long cord to get from the gym. But anyway, that's what happened. Well, a couple of other things. When we first started out, FCC wanted us to do our test broadcasting after midnight. Well, I don't know, but I guess if we were going to cause any problems with anybody, it wasn't going to cause many problems. So we were playing records, giving the telephone number to the school, giving the station. If you hear this station, call us. one dear old lady called out. She said, "Oh, I just tuned on to you. You're an answer to my prayer. I don't sleep a lot. I have a hard time at night. And I've been praying for a station like this to come on here. And God has answered my prayer. You're now broadcasting from there." The other one that I think about was at Christmas time, we used to start, 1st of December. We'd start, all the decorations are up now. So why not start playing Christmas carols? So we started in on the first day of December. We'd play one carol per hour. The second day we'd play two. Bonnie's shaking her head. And the next day we'd play three, and so on down. Because we didn't have a staff that could stay here. So when school was out, we were out. And so we started playing Christmas carols, 1, 2, 3, an hour. I got a letter from a Catholic sister over here in Bradley at the school. And she said, every night these past few weeks, we've heard the beautiful music coming from your radio station. And I thought there were a lot of people who could say that. I heard you on the air. Was the sweetest music to our ears. I enjoyed my time here. I was here for quite a few years. And when I got ready to leave, well, in fact, I was going on my one and only sabbatical, and Don Toland had come on staff by that time, and I said, "Don, I'm going to Europe for my sabbatical. I'm going to be gone. You're going to take over while I'm gone." He was teaching, but he wasn't operating the station. And somehow, when I came back, I never took it back.
Sorry.
But Don was doing great, and I figured, okay, he's going to take it anyway. So it's wonderful to see you, to see some of these dear old timers like Bonnie and Ken back there. We spent a lot of good hours together, and our budget was about that big then. I envy you guys with your call-in that you have now to bring in the nice dollars. I hope you enjoyed your radio experience. I did, and you're doing a great job.
Before we hear from Don Toland, he's with us today too. We're going to go back and pick up the story a little bit that Ray didn't know because he wasn't here when Russ Bretholt took over the station as a student manager. And Russ was not able to be with us for today because of some other obligations, but he was nice enough to be able to be in the studio with Bill Deweese earlier this week and tape something for us. And he'll tell us a little bit of a story about his days as he was with WKOC.
My name is Russ Bretholt, and I live in Orlando, Florida. And I was associated with what was then WKOC from 1967 to 1971. I started out as an announcer, and then later on was appointed station manager. Did some of the play-by-play of the basketball games, and was involved on a consistent basis for 4 years. I would just like to point out a few highlights of the time that I was here and worked with the station. It was a great opportunity to learn about broadcasting and communications and business and management, and as I have learned over the years, the motivation and care of employees or staff. All of these things were bundled up in that tenure with the station. There are 2 or 3 highlights just for the record that I would like to mention. First of all was getting College Church on the air. In my sophomore year, I went to Dr. Don Irwin, said that I had no money, but that I needed programming. I needed an audience, and to get an audience, we needed programming. Programming people could not get anywhere else. And so we worked out an arrangement for us to broadcast College Church. And Dr. Irwin was very generous with us and helped us financially with the telephone lines and in other ways. And I think that was an important part of the station's connecting with its community. Even though it was just 10 watts, it was the beginning of doing something with its community, which was very important. I also think about the time in my sophomore year where, having assessed the situation with the station, it either had to be shut down completely, in my opinion, or it had to be shut down, rebuilt, and then come back on the air after its retooling. And I went to Dr. Reed, who was president at the time, and the cabinet, and made a proposal. And thanks to the support of who at that time Kurt Brady was dean of students, and he was very supportive and made the motion to proceed with this proposal. We shut the place down. Tim Mercer and Mr. Irby got in there and rewired, retooled, moved the transmitter from the announcer's booth into the other studio. The station at that time was on the second floor of Ludwig Center. I think that was a very important day for the station, and it was also a way of Dr. Reed signaling to me that he was really in favor of having it, but after Ray Moore left, it had become an orphan, and yet he was willing to invest time and money into it, and that was a big boost for all of us. I think that one of the key things to keep in mind is that back then, not only was it on the air about 4 hours a day, we moved that up to 12 hours and then to 18, but we didn't have much money to run the place on. The budget was $1,500 a year, a school year. 900 of that went for my stipend as station manager and to teach the radio workshop class. So that left about $600 to operate the station on. And so we all became entrepreneurs, and I don't think any of us had ever heard the word before. But several things led to the development of the station that I want to mention. One, we got a lot of free records back in those days from record companies, most of which we could not play. So Ron Cunningham, who was music director, took the lead, put on a once a semester record donation project in the foyer of Ludwig Center, and would raise considerable sums of money with those donations each semester. Those donations then led to improvements in equipment, carpeting the studios and office, buying the things we needed but couldn't within the budget that we had. $1,500, that was in the 67 to 71 time frame. But Ron's innovativeness in doing that, and also the students began to then really connect with the station a little more, and that helped us out an awful lot. We got several letters from the Fine Arts Department. They were not happy with us doing that. Nonetheless, we needed money and went ahead and did it anyway. I think of the ball games, especially doing the away games. Obviously on campus the students could attend, and so therefore it wasn't necessarily much of an audience draw, but as we began to do away games, and what we would do is we would go to various individuals, alumni, businesses, and get them to donate the cost of the telephone lines. And so therefore the away ball games helped us to get an audience. Doing the debates with the student body presidential candidates, all of those things were just ways to get an audience and to build attention to the station and get the thing going. But thanks to Ken Ball and Ruth James and Jane Graham and a whole host of people, Frank Postolka, who came in and did sports, and others, Tim Mercer, I think what we did between 1967 and 1971 is this. We kept the radio station alive. And we kept it alive just long enough for someone else to come along and take it over and give it the time and attention that it needed. But keeping something alive is a worthy task. And in looking back on it, I think that's what we did, and maybe that's our contribution to what is now WONU. I'm sorry I couldn't be here with you today in person. The station means a lot to me, It was a great opportunity. I'm so thankful that the college made key decisions along the way to keep it going, expand it, and now to see what it is and what it does. It's worth every hour that we spent nearly 30 years ago to keep it going. Thank you very much.
Appreciate him taking the time out of his busy schedule. He was here for some alumni committee meetings and just was not able to stay with us for the event today. So we appreciate Russ and taking time out to take care of that for us. Jumping up in the story, back to what Ray had said about Don Toland coming to be with the broadcasting department. As Ray had mentioned, Don first came to teach in the English department, helping with speech and different things, and eventually he became part of the radio station. I believe, if I've got my dates correct, he came to the campus, in 78, I think, and then took over the broadcasting stuff maybe in 82 or something to that aspect. He'll probably correct me as he comes up here. Let's make Don Toland welcome as he comes to talk to us today. He can tell you better the years anyway. So.
I was a little scared. I thought I'd lost my ad libs. Greetings from the high country of Colorado. Bev and I are happy to be part of this 30-year reunion. Time flies when you're having fun. It doesn't seem possible that over 8 years have passed since we loaded that truck and headed west. These retirement years have been good ones for us. I tell people I'm permanently unemployed and enjoying it. We built a home 1.5 miles in the sky, just a little this side of the Great Divide, at 8,200 feet. We're 1.5 miles from the Arkansas River, wonderful whitewater rafting. We're 30 minutes from powder snow on Monarch ski area. The Colorado Hiking Trail is close. I sound like the Chamber of Commerce, don't I? Well, come and leave your green stuff. We do water aerobics twice a week at the Mount Princeton Hot Springs Pool, and we've done water aerobics with snow coming down on our heads, but it's always nice and warm. And we've helped start the High Country Church of the Nazarene in Buena Vista, Colorado. Some people call it Buena Vista, but we call it Buny. And we teach an adult Sunday school class, and I'll tell you how desperate we are. I play the keyboards for the church services, and I've started a new ladies singing group. We call it the Valley Voices. And that's a all-encompassing term, because if you have two, you can still call it the Valley Voices. If there are men in the group, you can still call it the Valley Voices. See, it's very versatile. I don't know what's going to happen. I couldn't find too many men that could read music, so I'm starting with the ladies. KVRH Salida is the local radio station in the Arkansas Valley. I still can't help grading voices and sound. The whole crew could use a little training at all of it. One of the first things I did when we decided to come back for this reunion was to go through 10 years of the Aurora, because I wanted to make sure I could remember all the students. And it was very embarrassing at General Assembly when someone would come up and say, "Hi, Prof," and I couldn't remember their name, you know. So I'm glad you're all wearing name tags. But when I went through those Auroras, it was literally a who's who of radio station personnel. I'm hoping I'll be able to chat with more of you at the end of the program today. It's been a real blessing to me to chat with some of you already. I want to know how things are going with you, what you're doing now, what your kids' names are, where you work, and does your husband work, or do you do all of the work? I'm not going to mention any specific names because I'd miss somebody. I know I would. When we left here, I think the last note I made in our correspondence to our listeners was that I felt like we were passing the baton. There were athletes in a race. I felt that way when Ray Moore went to another assignment. I felt that way when Henry Smith assumed leadership. The times were right for certain things to happen, and they did. I watched with pride the tremendous strength the station has in the Chicagoland area. Only the Lord knows the future impact of WONU. I've looked forward to hearing some of the highlights of station events down through the years. I'm glad to hear Ray's comments and Russ Bredholt's, and I'm looking forward to Bill DeWeese's comments about what's happening now. I thought it might be interesting if I gave some of the highlights of the 80s. Now, I have to keep this short. I couldn't think of any humorous things that ever happened during the 80s, so this is going to be fairly serious. I remember the 10-watt signal in those early years. The educational radio facility 10-watt stations were called sandboxes by our critics. But I remember when I first came, I got in the car and I drove out toward Herscher one afternoon to check our vast listening area. It faded out before I got to Herscher, but I wasn't at all depressed by it. I was elated. I thought, man alive, we're getting out almost to Herscher. And you know, they say that necessity is the mother of invention. At about the turn of the decade, the government told all the 10-watters, you're going to have to increase your power, or somebody else is going to take over the station, and you're going to be out of luck. We presented the problem to Dr. Parrott, and he agreed we should try for increased power. The result was a move to a new frequency, an increase in power to 430 watts, and a stereo signal. Now, as I toured the area, I was very pleased to get the station almost to Coal City. We're really expanding. With the enhancement of the signal came a move to the library, and we were certainly proud of the new studios on the top of Benner. It's amazing how much furniture we gathered from the basement of Miller. Have you ever been down there? Oh, it's a gold mine of used furniture, desks, and so forth. And so the station was using all of this equipment. It looked pretty good to us. It was better than peach grates by a whole lot. The next step of improvement for the station was also, I think, one of its more painful steps as I think back in history. With the increase of power to 35,000 watts in the building of the 430-foot tower came much static. We were feeding our signal into TV sets all over the area, and the criticism was enough to keep us all very humble, let me tell you. While we were okay as far as the FCC was concerned, we felt it was important to show the community a Christian response. And we provided filters to eliminate the signal going into the TV sets in the area. And the community response affirmed the rightness of our action. During the middle to late 80s, we also saw the beginning of operator scholarships, the AM inter-campus training station, and radio share-a-thons. Wow, that first share-a-thon, $2,000. Time won't permit any further memories, and I've got to hit the network in 60 seconds. But I want you all to know my debt of gratitude to committed and capable student leaders, to my immediate supervisor, Dr. David Kale, to a talented chief engineer, Dennis Baldridge, to wise leaders, Dr. Willis Snowbarger and his successor, Dr. Ivor Newsham, to an enthusiastic administrative team, and to Dr. Leslie Parrott, who supported the station in ways that many people will never know. And so it's on to WONU's future. May God continue to bless this important ministry and the people He's using to make it happen. Thanks, Steve, for allowing me to ramble a bit this afternoon.
Thanks, Don. Part of those 80s that he talked about were the 80s that I was here. And we sure went through a lot of changes. I've talked to 89.7, to WONU at 89.7, from using 45s and albums to using CDs and using the special CD players that maybe you've seen up in the studio where you put the entire jewel box in the CD player. So no more pizza fingerprints on the CDs. That's too bad. But so now you can't even play albums at the wrong speed anymore. So they try to take care of all those fun things that we had to deal with when I was first a freshman. And as Don was mentioning, he was here till 1988, and that's when another fellow came on the scene. And he's with us. I wonder if you'd like to say a few words. Dr. Smith, would you like to share just a little bit today?
It really is true that we build on the shoulders of other people. And in this race, I only ran a 100-yard dash. I came in the summer of 1988, following Don Tolan. No one could have prepared my way more thoroughly than he did, from inviting me to his home to stay, to helping in every way that he could. And I was only here for a short period of time as the director of the radio station. After a couple years, I knew I was going to stay on at Olivet, but at a different capacity. So as I look back at the things that happened during 1988 to 1992, the things that I remember, number one, were the changing of the call sign. When I accepted the position to come here, I was at Mount Vernon Nazarene College, and I'd asked the administration here, why aren't you WONU? And the answer was, someone else has that. Well, I had a directory in my office, and I tried my best to find who on earth had WONU, and I couldn't find anyone. So I called the FCC. And some lady there in the archive said, well, hold on a minute, sir, I'll try to find out. Came back and said, oh, it's a Navy ship out of Newark there. And I said, well, what on earth are they doing with WONU? That would be perfect for our college. And she said, well, they have it from time to time, just arbitrarily assigned. And I said, I sure wish they didn't have it and we had it. She said, well, if you write them a letter, they don't really care, you probably could get it. So in March, before I came, I contacted administration here and we submitted a letter, and in August, we were able to go to WONU. And I think in the long range of everything, that being ONU, which often people say, we listen to ONU as opposed to WONU, was the right thing to do. And so that was one part. Dr. Parrott, a special thank you again to him. I think what Don Tolan said about his support, a lot of people don't understand. The commitment for a first-class tower and transmitter was one thing, but yet we still needed to have some first-class equipment in the station. Some of the pieces of equipment there were being held together very effectively over a long period of time. And after I was there for about 2 or 3 months, Dr. Parrott had warned me not to try to pull this train to a halt, but run along the side of it and jump on, which I thought was good suggestions. I went in to kind of bear the lion's den and talk to him. And he invited one of his vice presidents in, and I said, Dr. Parrott, I've made a little assessment of what we need here, and we need 25,000, 30,000 right now to put it in first-class equipment if we're going to have the kind of signal I said, garbage in, garbage out. If you're using scratchy records and you have a wonderful tower and transmitter, what you hear competitively in Chicago just isn't going to do it. Well, he and one of his vice presidents nearly fell off their chair. One vice president says, "You think the president just has $25,000 in his drawer he can just pull out and hand to you?" I said, "Well, no, but he might know someone who might have that kind of so I walked out, really not daunted, because I knew that it was the right thing. Dr. Parrott saw me on campus about a week later and said, "Hey," he'd forgotten my name. I was a professor. "Come see me in my office." So I said, "Well, I'll call your secretary and get an appointment." No, just come on in. I have an idea." They come into the office and he said, "How much money do you really need?" Well, I had rethought it a little bit and said $50,000 would be better. And he said, "Okay, I'll get it for you. Go ahead and proceed." And he found a donor, anonymous donor, to make some significant changes. So I think the plan, and many students, as in this very room, we showed overheads of the plan of what we hope would be. At that time, maybe they weren't believers, but it's very satisfying to see what's happened over the years. The thing that I probably feel the best about, in terms of my contribution, is the fact that I was able to bring Bill DeWeese here. When I knew I was making a transition across campus to another assignment, I called Bill, not knowing what he would say, and when he said, "Yes, I'm willing to fly out here," I knew that I could exist on this campus with it in someone else's hands that could take it further than I ever could. And that's comforting. And if you're going to live in the neighborhood for a project that you poured some of your life into, it's great to know someone else can do the job and do it wonderfully. And Bill has taken it far beyond and done an excellent job. And I confess to you that I still can't listen to the station, because when I do, I want to call you up and make a couple nice little suggestions, which I do not do anymore. Not that you're not doing a wonderful job, but always as a teacher, you're always trying to think of ways to make it better. I do still listen. It's getting easier over the years. But the memories that I have of working with the students and those relationships are the ones that I miss the most. So, I pass the baton on gladly, and I'm very proud of the part that I had in WOU. Thanks.
Before we do hear from Bill, give us a little, he's going to give us a little capsulized view of what WOU is like today. I want to remind you, those of you that did fill out the surveys for me, I do have those completed, so do come and see me after we get all done. And those of you who didn't do one, you still can. You can just let me know your name and address here. We'll send you out one, or you can still mail in the one that some of you may have forgotten to send back to me. And if you even didn't fill one out, but you'd still like a copy of this, still write your name and address down here, and we'll make sure you still get one. We appreciate Brian Allen and all his help in helping me, and of course Beth Conway in the alumni office as well, to help get some of this busy work done for the reunion. And of course, we'll still have the studios open for a little bit longer after we get done today. Got a couple scrapbooks for you to look at, some more pictures up there that maybe you haven't seen in the conference room. And now it's time to hear from Bill DeWeese. We already heard Henry talk about it. We'll get to hear from him ourselves.
The words of the poem that Steve spoke at the beginning of the meeting still, they keep ringing around my head, and they remind me actually of my very first day on the air here. I came in as operations manager. Dr. Smith was director of broadcasting. And about 2 weeks after I began my duties, I began the morning show along with two students who are both here, Carl Fletcher and Julie Lambert. And I'll be honest with you, I've been doing radio for quite a while, but I was petrified that morning. It was a new radio station, new responsibilities, a new audience, and it's kind of like having to prove yourself all over again and to start from scratch. And I'm not sure how long we had been on the air that morning, but the studio phone rang, and I picked it up, and there was a young lady's voice on the phone, and she said, "Are you the same Bill DeWeese that was on WTLT in Columbus, Ohio?" And I said, "Yes." One and the same. And she said, "You know, I just moved, I'm a student at Moody Bible Institute, and I'm going to school. I just moved here from Columbus, and I never thought I would hear your voice again." And it's amazing how much those words just kind of beef up your ego just enough to know that it's okay, it's going to be all right. I would never admit that outside these four walls. where I'm coming from. Well, as far as where we're at today, I guess the two big things that people ask about, they always want to know, is what's happening financially, because as you've heard, the history of the station, the budget being, well, starting from nothing, to $1,500 a year and on it's gone. And then the other part is audience and what's happening there with audience growth and what kind of impact is WONU making in the market. And I'll just give you a very brief Reader's Digest version of what's happening. It's exciting and it's a wonderful thing to be financially self-supportive. I'll just say that. It makes, I'm sure, a world of difference. I don't have to struggle with a lot of the issues that many of you have struggled with over the years with the radio station. The past several share-a-thons, we're now raising money in the $225,000 to $240,000 a year range with our annual share-a-thon. Now that's in pledges. That's not collections, of course. Collections, that's a whole other story. But also our business underwriting. I was just talking with, I met her for the first time. I think it was Zoe, perhaps?
Zoberdine.
Okay. She's a sales manager at a radio station in Flint, Michigan. And she was asking, she said, so how are you doing in underwriting or advertising? And this past year, we generated $104,000 in business underwriting, unsolicited. These are businesses who called us and asked to be put on the radio. And it's grown to a point where we have a hard time, well, to be honest with you, we really can't keep up with it and service it properly. So we have just hired a full-time marketing director who begins this Tuesday. A lady by the name of Beth Krusich, who has spent the last 20 years working in radio in Chicago, at the Mix and Q101, and now she just does voiceovers for TV and radio professionally. But she felt it was a time in her career where she wanted to get back. She wanted to get to a Christian university and college and teach because of her love for students. She teaches now as an artist in residence at Columbia College. So she'll be beginning here next week, which is another, kind of opens up a whole new phase, a new facet for what we're doing here. But that obviously, in terms of equipment, and you've seen what's happening there, but also it pays our salaries, and no, I don't get a percentage. So I have no motivation in that sense. But scholarships and student employment, and it takes care of the needs of the radio station. And as Henry Smith was saying earlier, garbage in, garbage out, and the need for having an excellent facility to be competitive. And wonderful things are happening in terms of digital, and if you're keeping up with what's happening in terms of digital equipment and audio, we now have a fiber optic link from our studio to the transmitter. We use a digital processor at the transmitter. We use mini disc and of course CD and digital audio tape and a digital telephone hybrid to feed all of that audio out there. So it's certainly, we're sending a nice clean signal to our transmitter. So that's very exciting. On the audience side, we just received a report several weeks ago that for the summer quarter of this year, we have the 6th largest audience of any contemporary Christian music station in the country, which is pretty exciting. So we continue to be able to rank fairly highly within our particular format and are competitive there, which the main benefit of that is students who come here and who are able to work here, and we try to keep a high profile within our industry so that when they're ready to send their resume and audition tape out, that people say, oh yes, WONU, they know the call letters before they actually go out and try to get a job and such. But I guess the two big things, I mean, the emotions that are going through me right now are really two primary emotions. One is humility, because I'm just very humbled by the foresight and the vision and the commitment that's been demonstrated by those of you who are in this room. And those of us who are here now, as well as those who have been here in years not so far back, owe a real debt of gratitude to you, and we want to thank you for that. And also a sense of pride as I see many of you, Julie and Eric Butch-Kirk and Carl Fletcher, who is now our operations manager, takes care of the day-to-day operational details and programming of the radio station, who was a student when I came here, and those who are out working at other radio stations or who have passed through these walls and are now youth pastors or psychologists or whatever it is, that they have chosen to do, but they've passed through this program and we've had a chance to be a part of their life and to be an influence there. So that's very exciting. One last thought. again, talking about the need for administrative support. And this is not, I guess, exactly like asking for $50,000 from Dr. Parrott. I would have never had the courage to do that, and I'm glad somebody did. But I recently sat in an administrative team meeting, and they just wanted to hear my thoughts and dreams for the radio station. And I just want you to know, and hopefully this will make you feel good and positive about what's happening, that if you know me at all, you know that I can dream pretty big, and I'm pretty wild when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I laid it all out on the table. It was a no-holds-barred kind of thing. And I want you to know that I did not get one negative comment, one strange look, but only a green light, and said, please pursue whatever your dreams are for the radio program, and know that you have our support. And it's just a matter of sitting down and prioritizing the list of where to start, and you have our complete support. So it's very exciting to know that the school's administration is behind what's happening. Again, I just want to thank you for the part that you played. This has been just a very special time. Steve, thank you. Let's give Steve a big hand. And really, it takes somebody who has a love and a passion for what's happening and what has happened here to keep track of all of this. It didn't just happen this week. Steve has kept track of this over the years, and I'm sure will continue. We now dub you the official historian of Olivet Radio and WONU. Is there anything else at this point?
Just real quick, I didn't know, is Ken Ball here today?
Back there.
Back there in the corner. I don't know if you wanted to say anything at all. You had a lot of influential times at the station too, I understand. Yeah, well, I don't know.
Hit the network at 60 seconds.
Yeah, really. But I just wanted to recognize that he was here along with Bonnie Green. I understand from Ray, I think you had said that Bonnie Green was perhaps one of the first students to graduate with the broadcasting emphasis, with the mass communication major.
And Bonnie was the first lady to do color on sports.
I think that was correct as well. So I don't know if Ken, you want to speak real briefly, and then maybe Bonnie, if she'd like to.
Except to bring you all greetings. I put in my 20 years, and at the day the Air War started in the Middle East, I retired from the business. And I know many of you, and it's good to see Don and Deb. Good to see you again. Good to see you. And many familiar faces. James Rush, who was on one of the first staffs that's run a little while ago. And it's come a long way. And how long ago was it, Don? That thing that sticks out in my mind, the last reunion we had, we all sang a song. You remember that? Great is thy faithfulness. And God is faithful. He has plans for whatever call letters the station goes by. It's a divinely led mission. And with God's help, we cannot fail. And without God's help, we cannot succeed. I'll just leave it at that.
Thanks, Ken. Bonnie, did you want to say anything at all?
It was a part of my life that was very important to me, and it took a while. I've been back in Chicago almost 10 years, and it took 10 years to get to a point where someone would actually pay me real money to be on the radio, and I didn't have to have another job or something else to do, and that's really wonderful. But Ray Moore was so instrumental in making a difference for me, because he believed in me, and he cared about me, and that's what was important. And I don't ever cry on the air, just. But when you were talking about when people call in and say, "I heard you on the air," I do have to tell this story. For about 4 years, when I was in Chicago, when I first came back, I did sports on Friday nights for WGN with Ed Schwartz, and sometimes we do 15 minutes, sometimes we do 2 hours. We just talk about whatever was on our minds. And one night, the producer came in and he said, "I've got somebody on the phone for you." And they're always very careful about that. And in talking with Bill, it's something you have to be careful about when people call in. And he said, "So I'm going to let you take this call if you want to." And I said, "Sure." And I talked to this person. I think you know them. The man's name is Glenn Jorian. He was very big with Moody Bible.
Beautiful tenor singer.
A beautiful voice. And he said, "We just want to know if this is the same Bonnie Green that went to Olivet and that we kept as a foster child.
Oh.
And I was adopted, my sister and I were both adopted, and the Jorians kept us for the first 3 months of our life until my parents got us. And they heard me on the radio. Anyway.
See, thanks, Bonnie. Appreciate that. Don, did you have something else?
Well, I hope we have time for just a short, I'd like to hear what some of these students are doing now. I'd like to hear what Janet she's not Galloway any longer. I'd like to hear what she's doing. Would we have time for?
We can probably do that after we wrap up just officially.
All
And
right.
some of that also is in the alumni booklet that some of you are going to get, or if you want it, we've got extra copies too that we can find out about what everybody is doing and stuff. But yeah, it's exciting to see how far our graduates have gone. Some are still in radio. Some just did, as I think we heard Bill or Ray, one of those guys, talking about how that they just tried it out as an elective and went into some other things. We've got some pastors that have gone through the radio station and some various different occupations that have come out of the radio station work.
I was down to see Dawn Bumstead in Tucson, Arizona. She's promotion manager for Family Life Radio, the station at their corporate office in Tucson. And I remember her story about how she got into broadcasting. She came here from someplace in Michigan, and she was going to major in sociology or something like that. And by mistake, she ended up at the radio station.
In the workshop class, I think.
In the workshop, and she is a very successful broadcaster just because of that. Well, it wasn't ironic, was it? God had a plan.
Exactly right. Ray, did you have something else you
I
wanted?
just wanted to mention about those call letters, and we didn't get ONC at the beginning, because when we tried to get those call letters, up in Naperville College, you notice, is an NC. They had already gotten WONC. The O meant nothing to them, but the NC did. So when I made the application, I put all of the combinations I could get with Olivet College, Olivet Nazarene College, anywhere under the sun, and the one we got that's closest was WKOC, and the people in Kankakee.
Believe I didn't mention it. Last week, WONU became the first Christian radio station in the world to broadcast in stereo over the internet. Now, if you're online at all, if you understand how the internet works, basically any place in the world where you have a computer and online access, which you can do commercially through America Online, CompuServe, various sources like that, you can come into our homepage and listen to our broadcast live, 24 hours a day. And we just went on with this last week, and we're already hearing reports I got email yesterday from Singapore from a guy who's, and this wasn't a missionary, I don't think, because his name was Lee Sun Mun. And the first thing he said was, "Wow, I love your radio station." He said, "We don't have Christian radio here," and he said, "Now I know what CDs I'm going to go out and buy." So we hope that will continue to kind of tears down the barriers. I mean, we're talking about 10 watts to 400 and 20 watts to, well, now literally anyone in the world with a computer and online access can now listen to this radio station. So I can't believe I didn't mention that. I'm sorry.
That gets you out beyond Manteno.
Just about.
Hersher.
And we do have the newest editions of the WONU newsletter upstairs that have the address on there for the World Wide Web, along with email if you'd like to email the radio station as well. So I do invite you to go up there. Also go up there to look real quickly at the scrapbooks. Sign the guest book if you haven't already. Don't forget to sign my little thing up here if you would like a copy of the survey thing. I do have some of those that I can give today, but in case we run out, we've got an extra little page over there for people to fill out. And I hope he doesn't mind me putting him on the spot tonight, but Dr. Norman W. Bloom, it's great to have you with us. Remember my time working 3 years with you, recording the heart-to-heart devotionals, and I would just love it if you would do our final prayer for today, and just to express to the Lord how grateful we are for His hand being with this ministry over 30 years.
Shall we stand? Back in the 40s when we started the radios, in a sense, this is not prayer, On the fourth floor of Burke, we couldn't afford to buy perforated wall tile, you know, all those things, soundproofing. So we got a sheet of 4 by 8 plywood and drilled the holes through the plywood and then put the Celotex on the 4 by 8. That was our model, and went through that wood to make the holes, the perforation in the Celotex. And I spent days and days boring holes to help us get that first room started, the very beginning. Well, thank the Lord for radio, right? Let's pray. Dear Father, we've heard so many good things today, past and now present, and boggles our mind even what's ahead for the future for Olivet and for the radio, and for sharing the message around the world. Good news, good music. Thank you for the many who are here and the many who are serving elsewhere today who have been here, been a part of all this. Give wisdom to Bill and his staff, and help each of us to serve thee well. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you all for coming. Don't forget to see me for the survey booklets. All of our special speakers for today, please hang around just for a couple moments, if you would, for some pictures. I don't know if we're going to do those down here or upstairs. We'll kind of play by ear and see where. Yeah, we can probably do those upstairs. So if my special speakers can stick around, we'll do some pictures upstairs. Thank you.